Good evening. Let's call this meeting to order, the Champaign County Board. It's September 20th, 2018. The time is 6:31. Roll call, please.
Mitchell. Here. Patterson.
Here.
Petrie.
Present.
Quisenberry.
Present.
Rector. Here. Rosales.
Here.
Storr. Summers. Here. Tinsley. Vachaspati. Anderson. Here. Clemens. Here. Clifford. Here. Coert. Douglas. Here. Eisenman.
Here.
Esri.
Here.
Fortado. Here. Goss.
Here.
Harper.
Here.
McGuire. Weibel.
Present. We have a quorum. The prayer. Well, Deb Busey asked me to give a prayer on giving because it's the campaign for United Way is on this week, but I couldn't find one. But I thought I'd plug the United Way campaign anyway for all you employees here. Please give generously. Tonight's prayer. Lord, help us to remember that nothing is going to happen to us today that we cannot together handle. Amen. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the clerk please read the notice of the meeting?
Notice is hereby given that a regular meeting of the County Board, Champaign County, Illinois, will convene on September 20th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. in the Lyle Shields Meeting Room, Brookings Administrative Center, 1776 East Washington Street, Urbana, Illinois, in said county for the purpose of allowing and ordering payments of claims against the county, receiving and acting upon reports of committees, and such other matters as may be brought before said meeting, which said meeting shall continue in session from day to day until the completion of said business.
Thank you. Seek approve the agenda and the addenda. Moved by Mr. Rosales, second by Mr. Summers. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Our next meetings, the next facilities meetings on Tuesday, October 2nd, 6:30 in this room. On October 4th, 6:30 in this room is the environmental land use. On October 5th, at 9 a.m. in the morning is the highway and transportation in the county highway building. On October 9th, 6:30, there's the COW meeting, which is Justice, Social Services, Policy, Personnel and Appointments, and Finance in this room. There also will be a public hearing on October 9th at 6 p.m. before the COW meeting. That's actually proposed, but I'm sure we'll approve that later in this meeting. There's a Truth and Taxation public hearing at 6 p.m. on October 18th, which is the same day as the regular meeting, which starts at 6:30, all in this room. Public participation, we have a couple here. You're limited to 5 minutes. First up is Mark Thompson. And if you'd please turn on the microphone, then you can leave it on.
Plug in a flash drive to this, and does that work that way?
Yeah, you got 5 minutes to do whatever you want. Put that way.
Well, my name is Mark Thompson, and I'm power of attorney for a Sam Huntington, who was...
Could you sit down, please, so the microphone picks you up? Thank you.
Okay. Power of attorney for a Sam Huntington, who was tragically hurt on the MTD in August of 2015. He's now an incomplete quadriplegic on a feeding tube. The basic aspect of what happened is he got up at a red light to throw away a bottle. The bottle took off excessively hard, stopped his forward progress, threw him backwards to a fall, landed on his butt, and suffered a neck injury as well. Later that day, the same bus driver, pulled over at a bus stop. Driver got out of his seat with the aid of a passenger, put him back in his seat. Later that day, he got back on the same bus, was taken back to his apartment complex, and he could not get off the bus. He was locked up in pain. That bus driver, instead of calling paramedics, which is what he should have done, grossly negligently just asked two guys who were total strangers at the apartment complex, would you please get him off the bus and back to his room? They dropped him once that night, trying to navigate around his bed, and then he fell twice the next morning. The second time he hit his forehead, his whole right side went numb. Paramedics were finally called. I don't know if you guys have oversight of the MTD board, but I was told by 2 attorneys that you folks needed to be aware of what's going on here. Judge Ford threw it out based on his deposition. His deposition was taken at ICU, took 3 attempts over 4 days to get it done. He was suffering from pneumonia and a UTI. At the end of the deposition, he went off so far off the rails it was pathetic, and yet the judge threw it out. Summary judgment, it was also, I was not allowed to stand up and speak. My attorney, or Sam's attorney, made it clear I was not to speak. And yet at the time, I had in my hands, as I do right now, a fraudulent driver's report submitted by the MTD saying a woman took him back to his apartment and asked him repeatedly if he wanted medical help. That never happened. I interviewed both of the young men who got Sam off the bus, and I videotaped one of them in June of 2016, and he stated, you know that bus driver? He didn't get out of his seat to help. That tells me 2 things. There was no female driver, and I didn't see that female driver's report for 47 months from the date of the accident. It showed up out of thin air. And yet here this man says it was a man. And 2, he was bad enough, he said he didn't get out of his seat to help get him off the bus. That tells me how bad he was injured and how it was. We submitted a FOIA immediately, and they said there were no accident reports that day, and therefore there's no video. So basically, you're looking at management created a document. That's a crime. That's fraud in today's world. So it's up to the board, because you have a duty of care to be well informed. You have a duty of loyalty. You have loyalty. But you have a duty of obedience that says whenever there's a crime committed, the loyalty goes out the window and you have to do what the law states. I'm in a position to settle for Sam, and I want to because he's dying slowly on $1,147 of Medicaid in a nursing home for a man who's flat on his back, being fed through a tube, rotated every 2 hours, bed sores, throat drying out, crusting over. He's had at least a dozen UTIs, weeks at a time at the hospital. So I don't know what your oversight is. I'm making you aware of this. I'm going to be talking to the MTD board on the 26th. They have a meeting. So if this falls under your purview, I suggest somebody pay attention to what goes on there. All their board members got a packet that explained this thoroughly, 20 pages worth of explanation that shows it, plus a flash drive that shows the witness stating it was a male, a flash drive when Sam's under UTI saying, yeah, I was walking yesterday, it felt great, as he lay in bed as a quadriplegic. And yet they took that deposition. That should have been invalidated. My throat is dry, excuse me. So I don't know what oversight you guys have, but I'm willing to settle because I don't want to see the taxpayers in this county get hit with the punitive damages that would come with a fraudulent document being exposed or the willful misconduct of a board who ignores the evidence I have. At that point, I have to get an attorney, and I will, and the evidence suggests we're going to win this if evidence matters in a court of law.
Your time's up, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. And it was important to make it a matter of record. Thank you.
Reverend Underwood, please.
You just don't want to call me Reverend Doctor, do you, sir? Please help me.
Reverend Dr. Evelyn B. Underwood.
Yes, sir.
What's the B stand for?
From the backwoods of Mississippi.
I don't know that part.
When other kids was able to go to school, we couldn't even go to school. But I came from that and got 5 degrees. So I think I should be applauded. Thank you. But in all seriousness, I'm here tonight, and there's some people, if we may, Mother Ethel Reed, Eldris Melinda Carr. You want to stand with me too? We are representing a lot of people who, for various reasons, were unable to come tonight. We have talked to the Ministerial Alliance of Champaign, Urbana, and vicinity, and they have talked to some of their members who are afraid to appeal to the Board of Review, the Supervisor of Assessment, because they feel they'll come after them. Because they feel that, the people feel that they have been assessed too highly. I'm not afraid. I feel it, and I went and took my forms over there. I called and got the forms, and I did make copies for some of the people. Some of them, I took some of the people over there who weren't afraid, who took the chance to take their forms over there. A lot of people still afraid. I said, you're not in Mississippi, and you're not in Russia, you're in America. We just did the pledge, didn't we? But they feel they're gonna come back on them and charge them more if they go over there. You know, I've been before, and I went all the way to the state. And I did win, but you know what? I got an appraisal, and they still ignored that. But the state said, wait a minute, this woman got an appraisal, and you still ignoring that. And they sent it back, but I got guts, because my grandmama helped me have guts, but a lot of people don't. And don't care, I talk and talk and talk and talk, and I'm talking again tonight. And I hope this is being taped and people watching and stop being afraid. But there's so much fear, fear, fear. And people say, Evelyn, it can't be real. My friends tell me a different thing. It can't be, it is real. Mother, it's real. People have fear. And there are people who went over there. They weren't treated kindly. They weren't treated kindly. And people are not helping them. That's what they're trained to do, to help these people. Well, somebody told me, well, if they help some and not help the other, all they got to do, I'm not saying go without your job description, but to me, that they can say there are certain things within the job description they can do. They can say that, I'm not going to tell you what you can ask them. You appoint them. So to me, you got a fiduciary duty. Somebody's told me that. I'm not that smart. But anyway, y'all need to check that out. Now, I'm not making this up. I wish I can have more people here that tell you these things are happening. One lady said, listen, I don't even know how to use a computer. They said, well, someone said that, well, they can get these frees and get these people, we are citizens of Urbana. We are citizens, well, you over Champaign County, the whole county. And I have dealt mostly with the people in the Cunningham. But there are other people, because I talked to what, 8 or 10 pastors? Yes. And they've talked to a lot of their members, old folks, handicapped folks. And I hope that they come and do something about this. I know they're very busy on a lot of different other things that's going on, but these things are real. One fact, the neighborhood factor. Well, what you mean by the neighborhood factor? The lot and the building. A lot of people don't even know what that's about. So I only have so much time, and but there's a problem.
You'll need to wrap it up, okay?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Citizens have had what they believe that their properties have been assessed too high. One of the things I've seen a lot on there when they showed me, neighborhood factor. So it's not them, it's their neighborhood. So what that means, Sister Underwood, Dr. Underwood, Evelyn, some of them call me Evelyn because they've been knowing me a long time. I don't know. Let's go and try to find out. Well, if I go over there, they're going to charge me more. They really believe that. And some of them say, well, my house is not spanking brand new. It's 50 or 60 or 70 years old, but they building these new houses. They're going to put mine up with those houses. Did I say some of the stuff? Did I capture it?
You need to wrap it up, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you. Next is Eldris Melinda Carr.
That's me, and I stood with her.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Ethna Reed.
If I may have a little bit to add to what she said.
Speak to the microphone.
As she had began to say, with the we have the older homes, and there is a lot of new buildings going in our area, and I'm sure that's one of the reasons that they are putting the taxes up. I think that's so unfair. Our houses are well over 50 years old, going on 60 years old. And why should we have our tax up? Because there's a new house, new houses, and new buildings in our territory. And we're all senior citizens and been retired, and some living on fixed income, like I said, Social Security only. So I think that's very unfair. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public participation this evening? Okay, we'll close that. Thank you. Next up is the consent agenda. Any items which anybody wishes to take off the consent agenda? Okay, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Mr. Goss, second by Mr. Clifford. Roll call, please.
Mitchell? Yes. Patterson?
Yes.
Petrie? Yes. Quisenberry?
Yes.
Rector? Yes. Rosales? Yes. Summers? Yes. Anderson? Yes. Clemens? Yes. Clifford? Yes. Coert? Yes. Douglas?
Yes.
Eisenman? Esri?
Yes.
Furtado? Goss?
Yes.
Harper?
Yes.
McGuire? Mitchell? Weibel?
Yes. Motion carries, I think, unless Steve was voicing an opinion. Motion carries. Okay, any communications? Mr. Esri.
Thank you, Chair Weibel. Ms. Monty asked me to just make a comment on and let people know that the October residential electronics collection event that's happening Saturday, October 13th, the registration is now open. So if you're participating in live in one of the participating communities or in the incorporated county, you can participate. She said there still are several slots open. I don't know exactly what several means, but she said there were as of about 5 o'clock today. So she was just wanting me to make notice of it, and you have a copy of the press release at your table. Thanks.
And I might add that with this new method of getting a reservation, it goes very quickly. Any other communications from board members?
I have one. Would like to introduce Jessica Nicholson, if she could stand up from the audience. She's a first-year student from the student government and from the Department of Governmental Affairs. She'll be here representing the student body from the University of Illinois, and she would like to see how we operate as a county. So thank you for coming, and welcome.
That means we all have to start behaving, okay? Any other communications? Mr. Quisenberry.
Yes, unfortunately, I was unable to be at COW this month, but I was able to partake of it by video afterwards. And I would like to remind everyone that it's important you use your microphone, both for voting and for talking, because there are a number of times where it was clear that board members were talking and the public watching it on TV could not tell what you were saying. And particularly with the voting, I thought we used to have for voting a thing on the screen that would show yes and no a year or so ago, 2 years ago. Okay, it's a long time ago. But I missed that because I couldn't hear half the votes. None of them were close enough that it mattered, but just a reminder, use your microphone, talk into it. That's the only way the public can hear it if they're watching.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Quisenberry. Any other comments? Okay. Seek approve the minutes of October 23rd, 2018 meeting, moved by Mr.
Second.
Mitchell, second by Mr. Rosales. Discussion on the minutes. See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. There's no action by Casala County Facilities and Highway and Transportation. It's all on the consent agenda. So let's move on to Finance. Ms. Furtado.
I move the adoption of resolution number 2018325, authorizing payment of claims.
Second by Mr. Patterson. Discussion. See none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I move the adoption of resolution number 2018326, authorizing purchases not following purchasing policy.
Second by Ms. Covert. Discussion. Ms. Petrie.
Well, Ms. Michaels will be prepared because I asked for the total on the nursing home, and she might want to put that in the record.
Thank you. What I just handed Ms. Petrie was the exact same thing you have in your packet about purchases not following policy. However, she has asked that on the side that I put department totals, which I have done here, and so therefore the sheriff is the $5,609.76. That was basically a purchase order that came the same day as the statement. Circuit Court, $887.50. The nursing home payments that were due in fiscal year 2017 that were made in 18 is a total of $84,386.79. So you can see we're chipping away at that a little at a time. The other three are early childhood with $71.39, capital asset replacement $965.50, and the correctional center at $382.15. So therefore, I will put a department total on the side of this in the future if that would be all right with the board.
It's your report, so.
Thank you.
And we'll put it on there. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion? See none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Ms. Furtado. Let's go to Policy Personnel and Appointments. Mr. Rosales.
I move the adoption of resolution number 2018-327, approving an agreement between CUPHD, the County of Champaign, the Champaign County Health Department, and the provision of public health services by CUPHD to the Champaign County Health Department.
Is there a second? Second by Ms. Petrie. Discussion. Mr. Anderson. We have one. Is there somebody else who wants a roll call? Okay, Mr. Goss, we'll have a roll call. Discussion. Mr. Quisenberry.
Yeah, again, I'm sorry I wasn't here to talk about this at the Committee of the Whole. I did observe that there was a motion to change the term of this agreement to 5 years rather than 10 years. I would support such a change. I feel like that kind of adjustment in the relationship between our organizations is something worth conversation as opposed to reading about in the agenda. And so I would like to propose an amendment to revise the term of this agreement to 5 years.
So we have a motion to amend the agreement from strictly move from 10 years to 5 years, second by Ms. Petrie. Discussion on the amendment. Mr. Patterson.
Pascal, you or Deb speak on the time frame in which the other boards would have to pass it, and what would be the repercussions if they weren't able to do that by the end of the current agreement?
If I may speak, I suspect they'll have to have a special meeting, which they can. The health board district.
Could you go ahead and elaborate on the timeline and when those boards meet?
I don't know their schedule for the Board of Health.
The Board of Health only meets quarterly, and I believe they just met. Is their next meeting in January? Tammy, do you know? Do they have one in November? Okay, so they still possibly have one in November this year, yeah.
The district meets monthly, so it's not an issue for the district. Ms. Petrie.
I appreciate Mr. Quisenberry bringing up the motion. I supported it last time. I continue to support it, and I do continue to make the comment that for whatever reason, neither the County Board of Health or the Champaign-Urbana Public Health District feel it's important, sufficiently important to come before the county board and be here to answer questions. And if for some reason nobody could be here, they could have provided a cover memo. And Mr. Clemens, after I made those comments at the COW, did send an email message requesting such, and that did not come to be. So I have a high level of disappointment in both of those boards right now. Thank you.
Further discussion. I want to point out that I am on the district board, but I have abstained from all discussion of it, so therefore I'm not a party to that. Any other discussion? Okay, this is on the amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? That motion passes. Back to the main motion, which has now been modified. Further discussion on that? Okay, roll call.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Patterson,
Yes.
Petrie,
Yes.
Quisenberry,
Yes.
Rector, Rosales,
Yes.
Summers,
Yes.
Anderson, Clemens,
Yes.
Clifford, Cowart, Douglas,
Yes.
Eisenman,
Yes.
Esri,
Yes.
Furtado,
Yes.
Goss,
No.
Harper,
No.
McGuire,
Yes.
Weibel.
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Rosales. Next up on our new business, we've got the levy and rate projection for FY 2019. Pardon? Tammy, you going to talk about that, please?
During the legislative budget hearings, we discussed that the fiscal year 2019 levy has been prepared to capture new growth revenue in a potentially favorable ruling in the hospital property tax exemption case. So I just want to remind you that approximately $993,000 of this levy may or may not be received, depending on whether or not there is a ruling in that case and whether or not the hospital properties are added back to the tax rolls prior to the Board of Review certifying the books. Champaign County is subject to the property tax extension limitation law, and so this levy has been prepared in compliance with that law. The PTEL is basically application of a formula that limits the increase in the property tax extension. And so the formula does allow for growth for inflation, and in revenue year 2018, that amount is 2.1%. New property is not considered when calculating the limitations, so taxing districts can capture revenue from new property without violating PTEL. And so the levy that you have in your packet allows for a 7.4% increase under the PTEL formula, and that again is with the hospital EAV added back to the tax rolls and treated as new property. In 2019, the county will have a decrease in its IMRF rate, and so that allowed for a portion of the levy line, the IMRF levy line, to be reallocated to the liability levy line and the general corporate fund line. Also in 2019, the nursing home operating levy has been allocated to the IMRF, Social Security, and liability levies for the outstanding obligations of the home owed to those county funds. And I have noted underneath the levy what those amounts are for each of those funds. And so I do, as you heard at the beginning of the meeting, the county will be required to have a truth and taxation hearing because the levy increases by more than 5%, and so that is scheduled for 6 o'clock prior to the county board meeting on October 18th.
Questions? Ms. Petrie.
You answered two of them. Thank you for that. Explanation on why that distribution went to mental health. What is your thinking behind that? Because it is a 7.4% increase.
Instead of 7.43?
Was that what it was before?
No, the mental health and 377 board levies are pretty much in line with all of the other levies. I mean, they're a couple of 1/100ths of a percentage less, and that's because of the treatment of, I've got to think what the, there's a, in the formula, there are certain parcels that are treated a little bit differently for these particular funds, and that's the difference of the 7.43 and 7.41%.
Okay, that's what's causing it. Because on the Mental Health Board and the Developmental Disabilities Board, if I am remembering correctly, that each year that rate has been an increasing percentage as compared to some of the other rates. Is that accurate?
Not
each year they're getting more money than they
correct.
did the year before.
In conjunction with, you know, all of the other levy lines as well. It's not, you know, substantially more than any of the other levy lines. It's in line with what the increase is across the board for the levies.
Oh, all right. Thanks for clarifying that. I thought they were getting a bit more. Thank you.
Other questions? All right, thank you. Next up, we have a resolution. Mr. Rosales, would you mind doing this one?
I'm sorry?
Would you mind doing under new business, item B? No, not that one.
Okay. Adoption of resolution number 2018-328, amending the 2018 County Board calendar of meetings.
Second by Mr. Rector. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, nursing home cash flow report. Ms. Busey, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, just a couple things I'd like to point out. You have it with the yellow cover sheet at your desk this evening. On the first page, which shows the basic overall cash flow, if you look to the far right column under total expenditure outstanding, you'll see that at the end of August, that total expenditure outstanding amount goes to $4.99 million. It was at the end of July at $4.2 million. I wanted to explain why this increase in outstanding AP is so significant in the amount of $777,000. And part of the reason is that the outstanding AP was increased in August to reflect $275,442.58 that is owed to self-funded from previously paid insurance premiums and legal bills that had not been added to this report before this month. So that is now corrected and added. And without that adjustment, then the true increase in outstanding AP from the end of July to the end of August is $502,352, and about half of that is attributable to the fact that we had 3 pay periods in August. But still, that was probably the true decline in the financial position of the home. With regard to the self-funded, I would direct you to the last page of this report. That third page is a summary of all outstanding AP and its aging process. And if you look at the last page, you'll see what is owed to the Champaign County Group. And just because this has come up a couple of times, I want the board to be aware that we have documented everything that the nursing home owes to all the various county funds in terms of what they have not paid for or obligations that they have to those funds. So this is all here and it's accurate. And this number does climb every month because we are focusing all of our payments in the month, which is the second sheet of this report, to our vendors. We are not paying ourselves, we're paying our vendors just to make sure we can keep operating. So while the total owed to vendors might improve from month to month, which is that in the blue on the last page is now at 1.9 million. That is probably improving, but what is owed to the county is definitely increasing every month and is now stands at almost $3.4 million.
Questions from Ms. Busey? Ms. Petrie.
Just double check, and maybe Diane would have the answer. Is the census still hovering somewhere between 140 and 144? She's not.
The census has been consistently at the same level, and the last 3 months of revenue has been averaging right about $850,000, which was an improvement over the March, April, May revenue receipts.
Because it was lower in those months. The census
has
was
remained
lower.
stable. The payer mix has remained fairly stable. Medicaid pending is definitely much lower than it was three or 4 months ago.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Busey. Finally, on the addenda, Ms. Furtado.
I move adoption of resolution number 201834, authorizing an acceptance agreement between the County of Champaign and the Illinois Emergency Management Agency for an emergency management assistant grant. And I just wanted to point out that Mr. John Dwyer, the director of the EMA, is here should anyone have questions.
Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Patterson. Discussion, questions? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Ms. Furtado. And finally, one last item, the semi-annual review of closed session minutes. You see the memo from the State Attorney's Office. Could I have a motion on that, please? No, I need a definitive motion, Mr. Goss. I suggest maybe to keep them closed.
Sorry, didn't have that on. I move that we keep the minutes closed per State's Attorney's suggestion.
Thank you. Second by Mr. Quisenberry. Discussion? See none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, I think we have no other business, so we are, what? Mr. Mitchell, you want to say something quick?
Yeah, I just wanted to address our guests from their objections about the Board of Review. And the Board of Review is open from July 10th through September 10th. That's the Board of Review is a 3-member board that's 2 Democrats, 1 Republican, and they're all appraised or status, and they're very helpful, that if you go to have any issues with a property, that they will show you the proper forms to fill out. And if there's a property on the market that's currently on the market that's overassessed, it will be adjusted to 95% of the adjusted price. And there are exemptions that you can have: homestead, over 65, and income. So those are 3 areas that you can save money on your real estate taxes.
Particularly if you're age 65 over, that is an important exemption.
And that's, you have to file that annually.
You have to file that every year.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Any other quick points? Seeing none, we're in recess.